Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something that affects us all who worry. We all worry. We worry about the future, our jobs, our families, our failures, and even our dreams. But what if I told you that worry doesn't change tomorrow? It only steals today. We live in a world that never stops moving. With constant noise, pressure to succeed, and the fear of falling behind, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But here's the truth. You were not born to live in fear. You were born to live with purpose. And worry is often the result of overthinking what we cannot control. And while preparation is wise, excessive fear only paralyzes us. So how do we break the cycle? By shifting from fear to purpose, from anxiety to action. Living with purpose means knowing your why. It means waking up every day with direction, with a sense of meaning that pulls you forward, no matter the obstacles. When you live with purpose, worry fades, not because life gets easier, but because you become stronger, more focused, and more resilient. To stop worrying, we must take charge of our thoughts. We must challenge the inner critic and replace it with inner clarity. Purpose doesn't come from perfection. It comes from progress, from small intentional steps that align with our values. So ask yourself today, what lights me up? What am I here to contribute? What would I do if I weren't afraid? Worry may still knock on your door, but you don't have to let it in. You have the power to choose faith over fear, vision over doubt, purpose over panic. Start today. Start small. Live boldly. Worry steals the present. Worry is one of the most subtle but powerful thieves of joy and peace. It has a way of creeping into our thoughts in the quiet moments, while we're trying to fall asleep, during a pause in our busy day, or even while we're spending time with loved ones. Worry disguises itself as preparation, but in reality, it often leads to paralysis. It convinces us that by mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios, we're somehow gaining control. But the truth is, we're just living through imagined pain without any gain. When we worry, we're not living in the present moment. We're mentally stuck in a future that hasn't happened yet. And often the things we worry about the most never even come to pass. Studies have shown that the vast majority of our fears are exaggerated or completely unfounded. Yet they consume our thoughts, raise our stress levels, and prevent us from enjoying what's right in front of us. Worry doesn't make tomorrow better. It doesn't solve problems. It doesn't create solutions. What it does is rob us of mental clarity, emotional stability, and spiritual peace. It clouds our ability to think clearly and act with purpose. It makes us reactive rather than proactive, anxious rather than intentional. Imagine trying to drive a car while constantly looking in the rearview mirror or worrying about a bend in the road a mile ahead. You crash. The same is true in life. If we're not grounded in the now, we miss out on the opportunities, relationships, and moments that are right in front of us. We become so consumed with what might go wrong that we forget to celebrate what's going right. To reclaim the present, we must recognize worry for what it is, a mental habit, not a necessity. And like any habit, it can be unlearned. It begins by becoming aware when worry starts to rise, gently redirecting our attention back to the here and now, and reminding ourselves that we are equipped to handle life as it comes, not in our imagination, but in reality. Identify your purpose. One of the most effective ways to stop worrying is to shift your attention from fear to focus. And that begins with identifying your purpose. Purpose is more than a lofty ideal or motivational buzzword. It is the compass that guides your actions, decisions, and mindset. When you know your why, you gain direction. You become anchored. You begin to live with intention rather than reaction. Many of us spend years chasing goals without ever pausing to ask ourselves if those goals are even aligned with who we are. We follow societal expectations, external pressures, and comparisons without realizing that this disconnect is often the root of our anxiety. When we're unsure about what truly matters to us, it's easy to become overwhelmed by everything. Every decision feels heavier, every failure more personal, every uncertainty more threatening. But when you have clarity of purpose, you can navigate life with a different perspective. Purpose acts like a lens. It helps filter out the noise, distractions, and unnecessary worry. It gives you a reason to rise above fear because you have something bigger than fear to live for. Worry begins to lose its grip when you're focused on meaning and mission. Identifying your purpose doesn't mean you need to have every detail figured out or that you must change careers or upend your life overnight. It starts with self-awareness. It starts with asking deep, honest questions. What matters most to me? What kind of impact do I want to make? What values guide my decisions? What makes me feel most alive? Your purpose might be raising your children with love and wisdom. It might be using your creativity to inspire others. It might be building a business, serving the community, teaching healing, or simply being a light in someone else's darkness. Whatever it is, your purpose doesn't have to be grand to be meaningful. It just has to be authentic. Living with purpose also brings consistency to your life. Instead of being pulled in 100 directions, you begin to align your time, energy, and resources with what truly matters. That alignment naturally reduces worry because you're no longer living at the mercy of circumstances. You're living by design. Purpose gives you perspective. It reminds you that not every problem is worth your peace, not every delay is a disaster, and not every opinion needs your attention. With purpose, you can face uncertainty not with panic, but with patience, knowing that you're moving forward with intention, even if the path isn't always clear. Focus on what you can control. Worry thrives in the space between uncertainty and control. The more we try to manage the uncontrollable, the more anxious, overwhelmed, and powerless we feel. That's because much of what we stress over lies completely outside our influence. Other people's opinions, the economy, traffic, illness, or the outcomes of things we've already done. But freedom from worry begins when we learn to shift our focus toward what we can control. This principle may sound simple, but it's transformative in practice. It invites you to draw a clear boundary between what is within your power and what is not. You cannot control how others act, but you can control how you respond. You may not be able to control the future, but you can control how you prepare for it. You can control your habits, your thoughts, your decisions, your attitude. And those are incredibly powerful levers of change. When we fixate on what's outside our control, we feel stuck. But when we take ownership of our thoughts and actions, even small ones, we begin to reclaim our sense of agency. It's like standing in the middle of a storm and realizing you can't stop the wind, but you can build shelter. You can stay grounded. You can protect your peace. Focusing on what you can control also trains your mind to stay present. It encourages you to take small, actionable steps rather than get lost in spirals of what if. Worry often feeds on abstract, hypothetical fears. But when you root yourself in what's real and tangible, your breath, your behavior, your choices, you bring your attention back to the moment. And in the moment, you're not helpless. You have options. This shift is not about ignoring reality or pretending that bad things won't happen. It's about choosing where to direct your mental and emotional energy. Every moment you spend worrying about something you can't influence is a moment lost. Time that could be used to strengthen what is within your reach. You can control how much effort you put into your goals. You can choose to be kind even when others aren't. You can take care of your body, protect your time, create boundaries, speak truthfully, and learn new skills. These may seem small, but they build a life rooted in personal power, not fear. Purpose builds resilience. Resilience is often seen as the ability to bounce back after adversity, but it's more than that. True resilience is the quiet strength that allows you to keep moving forward, even when life feels uncertain, overwhelming, or painful. It's the inner grit that refuses to give up, even when the path is unclear. And one of the most powerful ways to build resilience is by living with purpose. Purpose acts like a stabilizer in the chaos of life. It's the deep internal reason that keeps you grounded when everything around you feels unstable. When you have a clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing, you develop a greater capacity to endure hardships, not because the pain disappears, but because your life is anchored in meaning. Without purpose, challenges feel random and defeating. You might ask, why is this happening to me? Or what's the point of going on? But when you live with purpose, even the difficult seasons serve a greater goal. The question shifts from a why me to what can I learn? Or how can I grow through this? This shift is powerful. It turns suffering into fuel. It transforms obstacles into opportunities for character development. It helps you find strength you didn't know you had, not just to survive, but to evolve. Living with purpose also gives you something to hold on to when motivation fades. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes with mood, energy, or circumstance. But purpose is deeper. It's rooted in your identity, your values, and your vision for a meaningful life. When things get tough, it's your purpose that reminds you why you started in the first place. It's what helps you take the next step, even when the road ahead is still foggy. Resilience doesn't mean you won't feel fear, doubt, or exhaustion. I am up for fear, doubt, or exhaustion. It means you'll keep going anyway, because your life has direction. You know what matters most, and that clarity becomes your compass. It helps you filter distractions, manage stress, and bounce back more quickly when you're knocked down. Purpose also connects you to something bigger than yourself. Whether it's your family, your faith, your work, or a cause you deeply care about, having a purpose ties your life to a larger narrative. That connection creates emotional endurance. When you know your life is contributing to something meaningful, you're more willing to face discomfort, push through challenges, and rise again after falling. In essence, purpose doesn't just inspire resilience, it cultivates it. It makes you more adaptable, more determined, and more courageous. When your life is guided by meaning, worry loses its power because your focus shifts from surviving the moment to fulfilling a mission that is bigger than the moment. Take small, consistent steps. When people think about living with purpose or overcoming worry, they often imagine needing to make huge, life-altering changes, quitting a job, moving across the world, starting over from scratch. But the truth is, lasting transformation doesn't come from dramatic leaps. It comes from small, consistent steps taken over time. The quiet discipline of showing up for yourself each day, even in the tiniest of ways, creates real momentum and builds a life of meaning and peace. Worry tends to amplify everything. It makes problems seem bigger and solutions feel out of reach. That's why so many people feel stuck. Not because they lack desire, but because the path forward feels overwhelming. The idea of changing everything at once is paralyzing. But when you break things down into small, manageable actions, you take away the fear and replace it with forward movement. A small step could be as simple as waking up 10 minutes earlier to reflect or write. It might be choosing to respond calmly in a moment where you usually react emotionally. It could be reading a few pages of a book aligned with your growth, setting one healthy boundary, making one important phone call, or finally starting that thing you've been postponing for weeks. These steps may seem insignificant in the moment, but they compound over time. Each small action is like a brick, and brick by brick, you build the life you want. Consistency is key. Purpose isn't something you stumble upon once and never revisit. It requires ongoing commitment. It's not a destination, it's a direction. The most purposeful people aren't always the ones who started with perfect clarity. They're the ones who kept showing up, kept learning, kept adjusting, and kept moving, even on the days when they didn't feel like it. Small, consistent steps also help build confidence. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you reinforce a sense of trust in your own ability. You begin to see yourself as someone who can make progress, who can adapt, who can take action despite uncertainty. That quiet self-trust is one of the most powerful antidotes to worry. Challenge negative thoughts. Our minds are powerful. The way we think shapes the way we feel, and the way we feel often determines how we act. Worry doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It is often the product of unchecked, repetitive, and distorted thought patterns. That's why one of the most critical steps in overcoming worry and living with purpose is learning to challenge your negative thoughts. Negative thinking is like mental static. It clouds your judgment, distorts your perspective, and feeds a cycle of anxiety that becomes difficult to break. These thoughts often show up as what-ifs, worst-case scenarios, self-doubt, or imagined criticism. For example, what if I fail? Or what if I'm not good enough? Or what if everything goes wrong? Left unchallenged, these thoughts can feel real, even when they're based on fear rather than fact. The key is to recognize that not every thought you have is true. Your brain is a storyteller, constantly generating narratives to make sense of the world. But sometimes those stories are built on fear, past experiences, or assumptions, not on reality. When you start to notice those patterns, you can begin to interrupt them. Challenging negative thoughts starts with awareness. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. When you feel worried or anxious, pause and ask yourself, is this thought based on facts or fear? What evidence do I have that this thought is true? What's a more balanced or realistic way to view this situation? Even if the worst happens, how would I handle it? This process is not about pretending everything is fine or forcing toxic positivity. It's about thinking clearly, not catastrophically. It's about shifting from fear-based thoughts to grounded, intentional ones. It's about retraining your mind to be an ally rather than an enemy. You can also replace negative thoughts with affirming ones. Truths rooted in your values, your strengths, and your lived experience. For example, instead of thinking, I can't handle this, you might tell yourself, I've handled difficult things before and I can do it again. Instead of what if I fail, you can say every step is a chance to learn and grow. These simple reframes are not just semantics. They're psychological tools that build emotional resilience. Journaling, mindfulness, and cognitive behavioral techniques can all help in this process. Writing your thoughts down can give you space from them and help you see them more objectively. Meditation and deep breathing can calm the nervous system, making it easier to observe thoughts without immediately believing them. And therapy or coaching can provide structured ways to identify and reframe the beliefs that are holding you back. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate all negative thoughts. They're part of being human. The goal is to recognize them, question them, and consciously choose which ones deserve your attention. When you challenge negative thinking, you take away the fuel that worry feeds on. You begin to clear the mental clutter, making room for clarity, confidence, and purpose to grow. So if you find yourself caught in the web of worry, remember this: you are not powerless. You are not stuck. You don't need to have all the answers to move forward. You just need to start with intention. Let go of what you cannot control and take ownership of what you can. Begin with small steps. Reframe the stories you tell yourself. Root your life in purpose, not panic. When you live with clarity, courage, and consistency, worry loses its grip and life begins to open up in extraordinary ways. You weren't meant to live in fear. You were meant to live with purpose. And purpose doesn't just help you survive, it helps you thrive. So start today. Start now. Don't wait for life to be perfect. Choose to live with meaning, with passion, and with peace. Because the moment you stop worrying and start living with purpose, that's when life truly begins. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.